everybody today? Good? I understand that, did this group have Mr. Alaniz as their speaker yesterday? No. It was another group? Okay. Mr. Chilo Alaniz was here yesterday, and he's the district attorney. I was a district attorney before he took office. I was there for approximately 20 years at the district attorney's office. Does anybody know what the DA's office does? The district attorney's office in Webb County prosecutes all criminal cases. Murders, homicides, aggravated assaults, drug cases, DWIs, DUIs, possession of marijuana cases, all those, they prosecute that. And the reason I mention it is because I believe I don't know if this group, but some of the students here are going through the Shattered Dreams project. And are you all familiar with that? Yeah. And I think he was talking about, making the right choices. If you go to the prom, if you go to a function, sometimes people start to drink, and then you're drinking, and then you don't intend to go hurt anybody. You didn't plan to go hurt anybody. But you're driving, and you're affected by the alcohol, make a mistake, you have a crash, an accident, and somebody gets hurt, somebody could get killed. Normally, all the DUIs that we have here in Webb County, anywhere really, the person who has the DUI and hurt somebody else is not, quote unquote, an evil person. They're not, quote unquote, a bad person. They're just anybody, a regular person who made a bad decision, a bad choice. They chose to drink, and then they had an accident and they hurt somebody. And then what happens? Two families are affected by that. The family of the person who got hurt, the family of the person who got killed, the family of the person who's accused of the crime, because now that person is in trouble and they're going to be prosecuted. And it's a sad situation. It's a very sad situation. Normally the persons who get convicted of this crime have to serve some time in a penitentiary, and they probably never would or have ever been in jail before. And I mention this because you all are what, 16? Going on 17? Okay, you're driving. Some of you are going to start to drive. And so you have to be careful when you go out there about making the right choices. All right? And I know people have talked to you about this, your teachers, your parents, other speakers come in about making the right choices. But we're not going to be there when that situation comes up. We're not going to be there. You're going to have to make this decision on your own. And sometimes there's going to be peer pressure. There's going to be other people that are, putting pressure. It's okay, it's all right, go ahead. And it's not all right. And I don't want this to happen to you all that are here today. So when you're out there, make those right decisions. Don't put yourself in a situation. Do not put yourself in a situation that's going to cause these sort of problems and affect you for the rest of your life. And it's happened here in Laredo. It's happened here in Webb County. There's young people, had their whole lives ahead of them, their careers, their education, going to college, and then this happens. So make those right choices. Now, I guess we can talk about a lot of things. Anything on your mind that you'd like to talk about? I'm an attorney. I've been practicing for 35 years. I'm a defense attorney now. I was a prosecutor before. I was a district attorney where we prosecuted the cases, people who violated laws. Now I'm on the other side doing defense work. I defend people who have been accused of crimes. I'm originally from Laredo. I went to local schools here. I went to Milton, Lamar, Nixon High School. Went to college at Texas State University in San Marcos, and I went to law school at the University of Houston. I graduated, came back in 1980, and started my law practice. I always loved politics. I got involved in politics as a Democrat. I was the Democratic chair of the Democratic Party, and I was on the school board, the LISD school board, and then I ran for district attorney, and fortunately I was successful, and I was there for 20 years. I still love politics, but now I'm just supporting people that I think that can do a good job. Running for public office can be very challenging, and it puts a lot of pressure on your families and everybody else who's close to you. Is anybody here interested in politics? You are? Okay. No questions. Too early in the morning. Huh? What do y'all think about this law we were just discussing this morning? There's a law that they're trying to pass, or that has passed in some states, where a person can refuse to serve you because they don't agree with your religion. Any thoughts about that? They can say, no, you know what? I don't agree with what your religion is, so I'm not going to serve you. You can't come into my restaurant. Or I'm not going to sell you flowers for your wedding because I don't agree, with your religion. You think that's okay? No? I don't think so either, but there are people that's what they want to do. And there's a lot of people that are catching flack for it. It's being challenged, and it can be challenged legally, and it can be challenged in the legislative body to try to overturn these things. But these are things that are going to be occurring as you grow up. These fights against inequality, racism, discrimination because of your religion, your race, is going to be coming up. Now, we're fortunate here in Laredo that we don't experience that because it's like 93% Hispanic. But once you leave here and you go on to school, there's other people that don't think that way. And this fight has been going on for a long time. In the 60s and the 70s, for example, in San Antonio, Mexican Americans weren't allowed to be on juries. You know what a jury is? Huh? Can anybody here tell me? When you go to court and you have a case, either you're being sued or you sue somebody else or somebody's being accused of a crime, you pick a jury. Those are 12 people that are selected from the community. And they're selected from a panel, and they can be fair and impartial. Fair and impartial means that they don't know the people involved, the parties involved. They're not a witness in the case. And those 12 people sit on the side as a jury, and they decide what the ruling is going to be, whether the person's guilty or innocent, whether the person proved their case beyond the preponderance of the evidence, and they're suing for damages. You're supposed to pick 12 people, all right? As far as I guess early as the 60s and 70s, Mexican Americans were excluded systematically in San Antonio and in Dallas too from being on juries, okay? And there was a lawsuit filed by an attorney named Cadena and another attorney named Garcia, and I think you helped me, his first name was Gus. They filed a lawsuit on a case because if you're going to be tried by a jury, you're supposed to be tried by a jury of your peers. That means it's supposed to be a cross-section of the community. But if all the minorities aren't there, African Americans and Mexican Americans, then that's not a jury of your peers because certain segments are being eliminated. So they filed a lawsuit saying that their client did not get a fair trial. It went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court agreed with them that they were right. And they ordered the district attorney's office and the government in San Antonio that from now on, all minorities had to be included in the jury pool and the jury panels. In the 70s, when I was still in college, this was still being done in Dallas. In fact, they had a manual in the office, at the district attorney's office, that told them when you're picking a jury, eliminate minorities. No Mexican Americans, no African Americans. We don't want them on there. And they attacked that. The attorneys also attacked that procedure, and it went up to the Supreme Court, and they won. They prevailed. And they were successful. And this was in the 70s, of course, probably before you were born, but it's not that long ago, all right? Now, I mention this because these fights continue. And for example, now we have this law that they passed that they say, we don't have to serve you if we don't agree with your religious beliefs, whatever religion you have, and I don't agree with it, then I'm not going to serve you, I'm not going to sell you, certain things, and that's being challenged. Certain states have already reversed that ruling, some haven't. And these are challenges that that we see out there in the legal field. Is anybody here interested in going to law school? You are? All right. Anybody else interested in going into law enforcement? I see one hand. A couple of hands over here. Well, great, good. That's good. If for those of you that are going to go into, well, it doesn't matter what field you're going to go into. These are some of the challenges, some of the things that are going to happen as as you go through life, and just things that that we need to fight. Now, in going back to your education, how many of you here want to go ahead and go to college? Most of you? Good. All right. Of course, the first thing you need to do is graduate from high school and then go to college. I also wanted to touch upon time management. How many of you, I procrastinate a lot. Does anybody here procrastinate? You know what that means? There you go. That's one of my weaknesses, and I have to work at it. And one of the things that I've done is I got into time management, okay, and prioritizing, the things that you have to do. Does anybody here prioritize their tasks? Does anybody here make a list of things to do? No? Here you go. Well, good. One thing that I wish somebody would have told me when I was in high school is to work on time management. And you can get online, and you can just put in time management in there, and they'll tell you a bunch of things. But go ahead and look into it and work on time management and prioritizing the things you need to do. If you need to do, for example, a paper, and it's due in 30 days, then you start making a list of things that you need to do for that paper. I need to do research. I need to read the books. I need to get online and read articles. I need to go ahead, and then once I get that information, I need to make an outline. And so you go ahead, once you start writing these things down, or plugging it into your computer. I like to write it down. Even though I have an iPhone and a laptop, I still like to write things down and prioritize what I'm going to be doing. And then planning it and seeing how am I going to get from A to M. And because if you wait to the very last moment, it's going to pile up on you, and you're not going to be able to do a good job, or maybe not even finish the job that you're supposed to do, okay? So work on your time management, work on prioritizing what you have to do. You get organized, you set your goals for how you want to get there, and then you make a list of the things that you'd like to do. Has anybody gone through a time management course or a paper or anything? No? Do it. Go ahead and do that and plan that, and it'll help you be more organized and more prepared as you go through your educational career, as you finish your education, as you go, whatever occupation you're going to have. I try to do that on a daily basis. A lot of people, every Sunday, they sit down and they plan their week as to what they have to do, and they start, making a list of the things. You'll be surprised how much it helps you prepare and be more prepared for the things that you have to do once you just sit down and set aside 10 or 15 minutes to plan your week, and plan your month, and as to the things that you have to do. It'll help you be more efficient, more organized, and better prepared. Does anybody have any questions at all about anything? Any cases? No questions. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am, excuse me.
You do know about the pizzeria, like the pizzeria that started off with the laws in Indiana, like how they stopped serving people?
Yes.
You know how much donations they got, right?
They got a lot of donations.
Like over 800,000 donations.
Yeah.
And then so more people started saying no.
Did you all hear this? It's a pizza place, and they wanted to refuse to serve people that they didn't agree with their religion or their philosophy, and As a result of that, though, there was a lot of people that donated to their cause. And how much did you say it was? It was about $800,000. And so what does that show you?
Some people they're ignorant and they'll be able to have more money because people are, I guess, they don't accept as much other people or other cultures or whatever. They're not as accepting.
The comment is that those people are ignorant and that they're continuing not to accept other cultures and other religions and other philosophies. And there's a lot of that out there. You know, there's a lot of that out there. But you're going to be the next generation, you know, that's going to go out there and fight these sort of things. And you fight them by trying to change those laws. For example, you know, right now what they're trying to do is, and it may have already passed today, is allowing people to carry open carry of firearms. Do you all know what that is? Okay. Does anybody have any comments about that? Does anybody do you think it's okay or it's not okay? You say no? What they're saying basically, if you pass a background check, is that you can carry a gun on open carry. It does not have to be concealed, and you can walk around with a... Right now you can carry a rifle and a shotgun, but you can't carry a firearm, which is like a gun. If the law passes, and it looks like at the state, not the Senate, but the House of Representatives, they have 81 votes already. If it passes, then anybody's going to be able to carry a gun, a holster, on open display. And you agree with that? And do you have any thoughts about that as to why it's okay? All right, but do you think that the person who's going to be carrying the gun should have some sort of background check or, for example, not have any prior convictions, pass a mental test, you know, that they haven't had any mental issues before and things like that? Yes. Anybody else? Anybody else for or against? You're for or against?
I'm for it, only for protection.
Only for what? The only thing is, when for protection and self-defense, that's what you're saying, right? And what about allowing college students being able to carry, you know, guns on campus?
Would that pass though? Like, if it passes, it's also on.
I believe they have an age right now. It's 21, but they wanted to allow that, take it down. There was still a lot of the senators that wanted even the college kids to be 18 or over to be able to take it. Well, no, excuse me. Not that you're college kids, that you would be able to take a weapon on campus, open display. So you would do it but you're saying for self-defense. The only thing is that once you carry it, what's going to happen? Excuse me?
What if someone takes it off you?
Well, yeah, you could be struggling, you could be wrestling, it could go off. You know, there's all sorts of things that could happen. The person can start drinking.
Like, not only for them to have a background check, but for them also to ask them, like, what's their everyday, like, what do they do every day, like, their routine. Because it depends, like, people that are in ranches and stuff, like, I get that, but not people that go to school. Like, school is already safe, why would you need to carry a gun?
That's a good point. That's a good point. But they are... Excuse me? There's other ways to protect yourself. You don't need a gun. Are you saying like physical self-defense or?
No, like if it happens at school, like she's saying in the way that school is safe, like you can always go tell someone. Like you don't have to, not that you don't have to defend yourself, but you don't have to act on it.
You have other options. But what about being out there in the public? You know. You should be able to carry one? Well, right now there's a law saying that unlawfully carrying a weapon, but there's like 17 defenses, affirmative defenses. For example, talking about being at the ranch, if you're going from your home to a ranch or a farm and back, you can carry a weapon. That's a defense. I'm saying I'm going to the ranch, or I'm coming from the ranch, so I have a weapon. If you go to and from your business, let's say that you have a business downtown or on McPherson, you can have a gun there. And if you're traveling to and from your business, from your house, you can carry a gun. If you're going, for example, to and from, what's the other one? It doesn't come to me right now, but there's about 15 or 16 common law defenses that you can carry to and from a financial institution. If you're making a deposit, you can carry a weapon. It's a defense, and the officer can charge you, but you can come back and say, look, I was coming from my business, I was going to the house, that's why I had a gun. But right now, with the law that they're saying is that that's all going to be eliminated, because they're saying you can carry a gun, period, on display. And I think we're like one of 6 states that doesn't have the open carry. But we're one of the most populated states that hasn't passed it. It's California, Texas, New York, and somebody else. I can't remember who it is. Most of the other states are smaller states. But I think it's probably going to pass. It was delayed by one of the representatives from San Antonio on a procedural matter, and it's going to come up for discussion again in a couple of days. And so if it passes, then I guess we're going to see everybody carrying a gun like the Old West, I'm kind of concerned about it because one of the issues is that I think they're going to require a background check. They're going to also require that the person hasn't had any mental illness and hasn't had any prior problems with the law, no prior convictions. But they're going to reciprocate with other states. Like if you got a license in another state, then they're going to allow you to have one here. And other states do not require background checks. There's some other states that you just go, as long as you don't have any prior convictions and you get your license, you can carry a gun, but they don't require a mental background. You can even have minor misdemeanors, and they're going to allow them to come over here. And so that's going to be Pennsylvania, yeah. And I don't know if it's Mississippi or Alabama. And so that's going to be kind of scary, to have people walking around. Louisiana is one of the ones that you can also carry a weapon. And so you can just walk around with a holster. So I guess we'll see what happens there. Anyway, getting back to furthering your education, I encourage all of you to do that. Of course, graduate from high school and go to college. Do what you like. Major in something that you like to do. But it's very important. Of course, economically is going to help you if you get your college degree, and get some sort of whatever you like to do. Studies show that over a period of a lifetime, if you get a college degree, it'll increase your earning power by $1 million over your lifetime. That you'll earn that much more. Of course, you don't want to do it just for the money, but it helps to be able to provide for yourself and for your family if you can go ahead and get your degree. And of course, if some of you go on to get postgraduate degrees, that helps as well. I was fortunate that I was able to go to law school. For a while there, I wasn't sure that I was going to go. I graduated from college and came back to Laredo, and I was working for a while, and then I applied to law school and went to law school at the University of Houston, and then decided to go ahead and come back. It's probably one of the best decisions that I made. The other thing that I want to tell you, you're going to have challenges in your life. You're going to have things that happen, but don't get discouraged and don't give up. You may get sidetracked. When I was in college, my parents got divorced. I was 19 years old, going on 20, and that kind of threw me for a loop. I got sidetracked there for a while. In fact, there was one semester I thought that I was going to go ahead and just not flunk out, but just go ahead and call it a day. But I went back. and went ahead and finished. But there's rocky spots that you're going to have, and you have to just think positive, not give up, and keep on moving forward. And it could be, for example, things that happen within your family. It can be economic. A lot of times, going to college is a challenge economically. Not sometimes, it is. And in terms of getting financial aid and the ability to pay for it, but don't give up. Keep on going, and it may take you a little bit longer than the 4-year plan. I've had people that used to work for me at the office that took them 6-7 years. They worked a full-time job, went to college at night, and took some courses in the summer, and they were able to achieve their degrees, and now they're working probation, working in law enforcement. Some of them went on to law school. Some of them went on to be teachers, and so don't give up in terms of getting your education, and because there are going to be challenges out there and things that happen. And when those things happen, just take it day by day, but keep moving forward. I've always been a firm believer in thinking positive. Always look on the upside, not on the downside. And so you also have to do the same thing and just think positive and moving forward, no matter what it is. Sometimes people say the key to success is just showing up and being there, and sometimes that's what you have to do. Just show up and be there, and not give up. So I'm sorry I went into Spanish there for a while. Does anybody have any questions about anything? We had one here? Yes, sir.
What do you think about the law where they're trying to have the first 2 years of college be free?
What do I think about the first 2 years of college being free?
Yeah, they're trying to pass a law based on that.
I think that would be good. We can provide the 2 years education. We just have to find a way to pay for it, and set up the budget. And that's what they're debating right now in Austin. They're debating about, what to do with the money that they have. But, they're also thinking that in 2 years we may not have the money that we have because the oil and gas industry is going down. And a lot of the monies that Texas receives comes from oil and gas, from royalties. And so some people want to spend all the money now, some people don't. They're putting more money into education. I think that would be something to look into if you can go ahead and get the first 2 years.
Because I think the statistic was that 14% of students went to college default under student loans. There's around 14% that default under student loans.
Did you all hear that? They're saying that 14% of students who have college loans default because it gets too expensive. That is a challenge. That is a challenge for kids that are going to school. Most people have to get financial aid to go to school. I did. I had to get loans, and I paid them back, but now it's become more expensive. And so what they're also trying to come up with is once you graduate either from college or, for example, law school, if you come back and are in a job that is in public service, okay, it used to be, for example, the Peace Corps, or if you're working in a government office as the public defender, an assistant district attorney, or if you go to certain areas and are doing public service, that they'll go ahead and give you credit or excuse some of the student loans that you have. And I think that's a good idea, to help people, financially. But again, do not get discouraged if you have to get financial aid in terms of loans and those type of things. I did it, and the best, I guess, example that I had, there was an attorney out of California. If you're going to college and you have to take out the loans, you have to think of it as you're investing in yourself, okay? And that you're a business, all right? And the business, if you get the college degree, then that makes your business more valuable. Okay, it makes it more valuable because you have more opportunities, you have more options, you have the ability to perhaps financially to make more money. So you have to think of it that way. And you also have to think of it that your life expectancy is going to be, you know, the 70s or the 80s. So once you get out, you're going to be working for about, you know, 30 to 40 years. So it's going to make you more productive. And these loans are not going to be that much if you look at it over that period of time. Am I making myself understood here? I don't, you know, at first you're going to think, oh my God, this is, you know, too much. And, you know, it's a lot of money. But if you look at it in terms of the rest of your life, it's going to be a very small blip, okay? You may think it's a bigger blip than that, but I'm telling you, over a period of time, you know, you'll be able to take care of it. And you're investing in yourself. You're investing in your education, and therefore you're making yourself more valuable. And you'll have more options. So I think we have some military coming in over there. They're in the wrong place, or? Yeah. Yeah, but I think, you know, hopefully they you know, they'll be able to do that. The only thing is that right now the prevailing party at the state level wants to put more money into the National Guard, border security, divert money to other things besides the monies into education. Does anybody else have any questions?
I have one.
Okay.
So on behalf of the ones that don't want to ask, if they seek a career in law, or like, they want to study law, what advice would you give to a student as far as choosing what area of law do you want to?
What area of law you want to practice?
Yeah.
If you're seeking a career in law, it just depends. I love practicing criminal law as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney. I think it's, sometimes the actual case, the subject matter, it can be pretty gruesome, but you're in trial, you're preparing for trial, you're advocating for your client, doesn't matter what side it is, you're advocates, you're defending the Constitution of the United States, and that's what I like. There's been attorneys, for example, there was a district attorney, Charlie Borchers, they named the school after him. His father practiced civil law, like lawsuits, you know, real estate, things like that. He always didn't really care for criminal law, but then he went to become an assistant district attorney, and he loved it. He loved it, and that's what he started doing, and as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney. But what I would suggest is, if once you get into law school, you take the courses, and then you'll start to get a feel for what you like. There's a lot of attorneys right now that, for example, there's a young lady that went to law school with my son, and she loves to practice domestic violence. She represents victims of domestic violence, and that's what she's doing, and she loves it. Others, for example, want to be prosecutors in the district attorney's office and prosecute criminal cases. And so it just depends. I think you need to go with an idea of what you like to do, but keep an open mind once you get to law school, and then you'll slowly start to get an idea of what you like to do there. Any other questions? About anything? Everybody's going to sleep.
You're familiar with Social Security, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Do you know at the current rate of what's going on that Social Security will run out apparently at 2033? That's when the solvency will run out, and that's when we run out of all Social Security money currently, what's in store. Because more people are taking out than
They're putting in.
due to the baby boom generation. So what do you think is the best way to fix it?
The question is about Social Security. Right now, when you work, they take money out of your paycheck and they put it into Social Security, unless you're a teacher. Teachers unfortunately don't qualify. And then when you get to retirement age, which is it can be in the 60s, the longer you wait, 66, then you can start drawing on the Social Security. This law was passed back in the 40s by President Roosevelt in the Congress to help people that were of that age that didn't have a safety net. They couldn't work anymore, they were getting older, and they didn't have any savings to help them out. So they passed this law to help people of retirement age with to have a little bit of money coming in to help them provide for themselves. Now, what's happened though is that more and more people are tying into Social Security, and the comment that was made is that there may not be enough money there, and it'll run out what 2033, and there may not be enough money to start paying the people that are coming in. It's a big problem, and it's a problem that Congress has kind of kicked the can down the road, so to speak, because nobody wants to reduce Social Security benefits, Medicaid or Medicare, and so they're going to have to do something about it. The budget for the United States is Social Security, the big things, and the defense, which is our military. That's where most of the money goes to, and so yeah, it's going to be a problem. They may have to start reducing some of the benefits that people are getting.
Also, like the thing is that there's a tax cap. Basically, if you make over $120,000, you'll pay the same percentage as someone who makes $120,000 out of Social Security, and there isn't like any they don't charge them as much. Let's say you make $1 million, you'll pay the same amount as someone who makes $120,000.
Are you saying they're proposing that law, or that's?
That's one of the proposals, like to fix that, like the solvency.
So that everybody pays the same? Yeah. One of the proposals is no matter how much you make, whether you make $100,000 or $1 million, you're going to pay a certain amount so that it all goes back into Social Security. You know, that's an issue that goes back and forth. For example, there was a study. You know how there's been a lot of controversy over the immigration laws and what to do with people that have been here but don't have legal residency, and then there's children here that are American citizens. The study shows that in the past 10 years, there's been like $10 billion paid by immigrants into Social Security, and that they don't draw it back out. And in fact, if it wasn't for the Social Security that they were withdrawing from the illegal immigrants, Social Security would have gone down a lot earlier. And so, you know, it's another issue that needs to be, that's going to have to be, you know, looked at, but nobody wants to touch it because they don't want to reduce the representatives don't want to reduce anybody's benefits, you know. So, but it's, you know, there's also other issues. For example, some people complain, you know, for example, the other issue of food stamps. There's a lot of people that get upset about people receiving food stamps, that they don't want people to get, you know, food stamps. And they're always, for example, they want to have food stamps only, that you can only get bread, milk, meat, eggs, only certain things. And that you can't get, for example, potato chips or Fritos or Cokes and things like that. And for example, I was talking to our state representative, Richard Raymond. He introduces a bill every session that you can only get the basics out of food stamps. You can't get chips, you can't get Cokes, you can't get candies. But do you know who the one is that comes in and opposes it? It's the other party, but it's Hershey, it's Coca-Cola, it's Frito-Lay, who comes in and says, no, we do not want you to eliminate this because we want to sell our products. So it's the conservative business group that comes in and opposes it, and it gets defeated every year. For example, the other thing that comes up is legalized gambling. We have a lot of these maquinitas here, and you're only supposed to pay a price up to $5, but a lot of people are paying cash because that's the only way you can be successful. And again, our state rep passes. I see a lot of smiles over there in the back. I mentioned the maquinitas, but Richard Raymond introduces a bill to allow local counties to decide whether they want to have legalized gambling, and it'll be supervised by the Texas Alcohol and Beverage Commission, and everybody's going to pay taxes. And there's always opposition that supposedly it's gambling is immoral, and that, you know, it's again on religious beliefs. But those people that are against it, some of their biggest donors are MGM, Caesars, all the gambling institutions are supporting them because they don't want gambling in Texas. Because if you have gambling in Texas, then you're not going to be flying to Las Vegas or to Louisiana to go gamble over there. And so, you know, it's just, of course, you know, some people may or may not agree with gambling, but it's in most of the other states, and they're making a ton of money. And a lot of the money that in Texas is going to other states. So I don't know, I've gotten to the point where I think they should just go ahead and pass a law and allow it to be regulated. But then going back, we had a meeting on trying to legalize the gambling. There's a lot of owners that don't want it legalized, and for illegal purposes, because they get a lot of cash, and they get a lot of cash that's not reported, you know, and so they don't really want to do it, because if it's legalized, then there's going to be the Texas Alcohol and Beverage Commission is going to regulate it. They're going to go into the machines. They're going to be able to see how much they paid into it, how much they paid out. They're also going to be able to tell how much each machine is paying out. Okay, so for example, in states that have legalized gambling, every machine, you can check to see if it pays back 50%, 60%, 70% on the machines. And but here we don't have the regulation, so you don't know. And I think a lot of people are getting missiled, you know, by that. But that's another issue. And again, if they did, a lot of that money could go back into education. And if everybody had to report what they were making, then there would be more money going back into Social Security as well. You know, but any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Talking about politics, what are your thoughts about those two Hispanics who are running for president? The Republican, Mark Rubio and Ted Cruz. You were just talking about.
Yes. I'm a Democrat, okay, guys? I'm a Democrat. I'm not Republican. And I think that probably Mark Rubio would have a much better chance, because he has the same name, of course, right? And but I think his views are more in line with Hispanics. Ted is he's just too far out there. He's just too far out there, and, you know, he's kind of in line with some of these laws that are being able to refuse people service because of religion. For me, he's just too far out there. But I think he probably has a very good shot at it, along with Jeb Bush on the Republican side. And former Governor Jeb Bush his views on immigration, I think, are more in line with what we'd like to do here. He's more reasonable. So I think he has a good chance. The only thing is that Jeb Bush is raising a ton of money. He raises like $100,000 every 45-minute meeting. He goes in, talks to people. There was an article in Time Magazine. He'll talk to, you know, a group of people, come in, make his pitch. They make the donations, $100,000, $150,000. He's out the door after he takes a couple of photos, all less than an hour. So and in politics, the former Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, said, if you're going to be in politics and you want somebody, you have a candidate, you have to have an attractive candidate, hopefully, and a qualified candidate, and a candidate who has money. And if you don't have the third, forget about the first two, because you're not going to get there. Politics has gotten very expensive. To run in Webb County for a county-wide office, it's probably costing you about $150,000 to $200,000 at least. I mean, can you do it without that amount of money? You can, but television has gotten very expensive to get your message out. Some people run, that don't have the money, sometimes are successful. They run a guerrilla-type campaign by running radio ads. Radio ads are not as expensive, and you can change your message in 30 minutes. You just go record it, and you can change your message in 30 minutes and turn it around. And then you also got the social media that you can do that. But the social media mostly is for a younger crowd, people such as yourself, people perhaps 30, 35 and younger. The older crowd probably will look at the social media as much. They still rely on TV, newspaper, and radio. Newspaper is kind of coming in third now, because nobody's really, reading the newspaper. I love to read the newspaper because I like to have a paper copy. But for most of you, when you read your news, is it on newspaper or is it online? Online, most of the, so I still like to read the newspaper, and so that's changing. So going back to your question, I think, you know, Marco Rubio is a great candidate for the Republicans, but, you know, will he be able to raise the money? And to raise the money, you have to be able to sustain it as you're going throughout the states. The only other thing is his views on our opening up our relationship with Cuba is the old traditional Cuban style. The younger Cuban Americans want to normalize relationships with Cuba, and I think they should. I think that'll go a long way toward changing the way they view things over there in Cuba. And the other person who I think who's probably going to be even more dangerous is going to be George P. Bush. George P. Bush is the grandson of President Bush, nephew of President Bush, or former President Bush, and I don't know if you all knew this, but he is half Hispanic. His mother is Mexican. She's from Mexico, and he can speak fluent Spanish. So he's going to have the ability to raise money. So he's probably going to be the most dangerous candidate for the Democrats, you know, in the future. So, and then on the Democratic side, I think Hillary's pretty much good. Well, I don't know. I mean, we thought she was going to get the nomination last time, and President Obama came in and won, you know, so you never know. You never know. But don't get me talking about politics. I'll go on and on, you know. Any other? Yes, sir. Why be a Democrat? If what now? Why be a Democrat when there's many Republicans? I've been a Democrat all my life. I think, you know, in Webb County, the majority of the people, you have to run as a Democrat to win. And I've been a Democrat in good times and bad times. I've been a Democrat when the Democrats were in power, and then when they're not. And Texas has changed. We're all Republican now. But I think that, for example, I believe that the Democratic Party is the best party to be able to help in terms of making it easier to get an education, in terms of making it easier, for example, to provide aid to people who have mental illness. I think that I believe our immigration policy is more moderate and a better option than some of these more stringent policies that the Republicans have. And so, yeah, it's kind of tough right now, but, you know, you just have to keep on fighting the good fight. And so I don't agree with some of the policies, for example. I don't believe that, and I'm maybe going to kick up a hornet's nest right now, but my wife and I are pro-life, but I don't think that the government should be telling or putting in laws to tell an individual what to do. And I just don't think so. We have to have a separation of church and state. And that's the reason the United States got started, because of religious prosecution. People came from England because their religion was not in agreement with the religion that they had in England, so they came over here. So our forefathers, when they wrote the Constitution, they wanted to have a separation of church and state, separate. And I think that's the way it should be, you know. So, and I think that's you know, one of the other things that you know, we could go on and probably have fights at the dinner table over that, but I just think that the Democrats probably are more in line with, you know, working everyday people than the Republicans, you know. So I mean, we've had some of the comments. I mean, we just had, I mean, McCain and some of these other. They're still talking. There was just an article that they still use the word tar baby. And you guys aren't familiar with that, but it's an old book that was written way back then, but it's a derogatory term for African Americans, you know, to be called a tar baby. And so, and they still use, you know, terms like that. So anyway, yes, sir.
What do you think about
Yes, I completely disagree with what they did. The president is the president. He's the commander-in-chief, and he's supposed to represent the United States in dealing with other foreign countries. And for the senators, and a lot of them have backed down now, to go ahead and send a letter to the president of Iran or whatever was completely out of line. Everybody criticized him for him. A lot of people, even Senator McCain started backing off on doing that. The president has to speak for the nation when we're dealing with other nations. Whether we agree with it or not, he is the president. He won fair and square. You have to let him go ahead and deal with him. You cannot be undercutting him. All right? And there was a cartoon that came out that when, I don't know if y'all are familiar with World War II and the history, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. President Roosevelt declared war on Japan. And so after this happened, there was a cartoon that said, Emperor Hirohito, don't pay attention to President Roosevelt. We may have to go ahead and change that. You see what I mean? In other words, you can't be undercutting the president. It's not good foreign policy. The senators were criticized by career diplomats for doing that.
Also, what was it called? When I forgot who invited. I don't remember who did it, but they got Benjamin Netanyahu to come without like the president's approval, and a lot of people started criticizing. I don't remember who did it. I just forgot.
It was the Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House invited the President of Israel, and I got problems pronouncing his name. Could you pronounce it for us?
Yeah, Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yahu, to come speak to Congress, to the House of Representatives, and he disagreed with the president's policy or what they're trying to do on this nuclear reaction thing, and they invited him over here. And again, I think that was in poor taste. He spoke very well, but still, it wasn't the appropriate time to be doing that. It just wasn't the appropriate time. So now that we're talking about this, I also want to encourage every one of you to get involved. As soon as you're old enough, register to vote. Register to vote and get involved, with supporting people that you think will do a good job, either as a city councilman, as a JP, as a county commissioner, county judge. Get involved. Everybody criticizes. Sometimes people criticize, and I have friends of mine say they criticize, the budget, they criticize this. I said, well, did you vote? He goes, no, I didn't vote. I said, well, then you don't have any right to be criticizing anybody. If you don't vote, then you don't have a right to be criticizing. And we are very fortunate to be in a country where we can be talking about things like this and not be criticized. In Russia, you can't do it. In Venezuela, you can't do it. The president already declared military rule, and anybody that disagrees with him picks him up and they're arrested. There's a lot of countries like that. And so we are very fortunate that we can have discussions like these about controversial issues, and you're not going to be arrested, and you're not going to be beat up or anything. In Russia, people are getting killed because they disagree with the president. And so but we need to get involved. Citizens need to get involved. Once you're old enough to vote, you're going to be old enough also to be cited for jury duty. And for our judicial system to succeed, to work, people need to show up for jury duty, okay? And you're the community. You're going to be old enough to vote. You're going to have to old enough to be on the juries. You have to be there because it is important. Otherwise, the system does not work. And again, support people you think that can do a good job, and don't shy away from that. I mean, because it's your responsibility as a citizen to do that. All right? If the citizens don't get involved, then nothing is going to happen. And you're going to let other people, take over because, they're the ones that are getting involved. And so I encourage everyone here, as soon as you're old enough to register to vote, to do so. And vote to start off with, and support people you think that are doing a good job. Because there's going to be laws that are going to be coming up that affect all of you right now. Any other questions?
Sir, what's your position on immigration?
That's a tough one. I mean, I kind of think that, when someone's already here and been here for a long time, has children that were born here, going to schools here locally, and then they want to deport that person. They don't really have any life anymore in Mexico. They don't have family over there anymore. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, legally, okay, you came in illegally, but they don't have a life. They're working over here, and you know, Social Security is being deducted from their paychecks and so forth. But I think we also have to have, we have to have a system in place where we can stop some of these unrestricted transfer of illegal aliens. It's a big business. I'm appointed to represent people all the time. You know, people who come over illegally, and they're just coming over, to try to get a job. I have a young man. He's 18 years old, and he was going to be a guide. They caught him over here between Geo and the CCA, trying to guide, and he says, he makes $60 every 2 weeks delivering tortillas. $60, so you can't survive on that. So when you have that temptation of being able to come over here and work and make more money, it's just really hard to stop people from coming over, And I'm in favor of the DREAM Act. I think that people, if you've already been here and, you shouldn't be punished for that. You should be able to go to school and pay just the regular tuition that everybody else does. But it's a very hard issue. For example, there's a person, he's been here all his life. He's here illegally. Back in the 60s, he was a 17-year-old and got into a problem. He was placed on felony probation. He wasn't deported because it wasn't as strict as it is now. He went on to become, I think he was either an electrician or plumber, had his business, got married, bought a home, had kids. I think they even went to Cigarroa High School, got arrested, and because he had a prior felony and was here illegally, he's going to have to serve over 2 years, okay, and then he's going to be deported to Mexico, where he no longer has anybody over there. He's been here his entire life. And so there's kind of a little injustice in that, and the judges really can't do anything about it. That's the law. That's the law. He has a prior felony conviction. He's not an American citizen, not even a resident, and so now he's going to be deported. And the crime is that you cross the geographical border and you're here illegally. It's not that the person was moving drugs, not that the person robbed. Not that the person beat up somebody else. It's just you're here illegally. So sometimes I see that, that's some of those injustices, And there's a lot of people, the coyotes, that are taking advantage of the illegal aliens too, because they're paying now from $2,500 to $5,000 to be crossed and taken to Houston. It's become a business. And I also, for example, I think that the people who've already been here for a certain period of time, don't have prior, that aren't going to commit crimes, should be allowed to apply for at least to be a resident alien, But like I said, it's a tough issue. It's just like the war on drugs, that's also another problem. I don't know if you all knew this, but 10 years ago, the United States has 5% of the world's population. But 10 years ago, we were consuming 50% of the world's illegal drugs. Cocaine, meth, and marijuana. And that was 10 years ago. Now it's probably like 60% because the United States is affluent, the money is here. But I don't think that we're doing enough to educate the population about the dangers of doing drugs. I think we should have a curriculum in schools. I mean, hopefully all of you are not using drugs and don't use drugs, but I think we need to start at the first grade level with a curriculum, like a PE teacher, like a music teacher, that are starting to talk to the kids about, the dangers of doing drugs, making the right choices, making the positive choices, staying away from negative triggers. And because we're spending all this money on prisons, we're spending money on guns, helicopters, and stuff, and we're not stopping the drugs from coming in, so that's another problem. And then when they say that that they went ahead and burned 500 acres of marijuana, well, that only made the marijuana that wasn't caught more valuable. It's like taking 100 Suburbans off the lot, well, the rest of the Suburbans that stayed there are going to become more valuable because people want them, they want to buy them. So I think we need to do more in terms of educating about the dangers of using drugs, starting at the kindergarten and first grade level, and having the curriculum all the way through high school so that people know what the problem is. I know that you've probably been talked to this about not doing drugs, you know, tons of times, but we need to start earlier, and it has to be a continuous program. The audience said, no one's going to be using it. So how it's not, and he just feels that it would be more regulated and could get the problem under control, and you wouldn't be having addicts out there.
Also, I remember there was a thing in Ireland where they were trying to, what do you call it, they're updating basically the laws for drugs, but there was a loophole in the law they did that accidentally made every single drug legal. So like everyone went like, it wasn't crazy, but some people started using it, and then like they updated the law the next day. So
They got it in time.
yeah.
Did you all hear that? That in Ireland they made a mistake in passing a law and accidentally illegal drugs were legalized for one day. You know, some people started using them instant. Yeah. I think people, going back to marijuana, I think people go back and forth. You know, in the 30s, alcohol was prohibited. You know, you couldn't have alcohol. No alcohol at all, no beer, no liquor or anything like that. Of course, in Laredo, it didn't affect that much because people would go across the river, but, you know, and buy it there. So, any other questions about anything? We talked about immigration, we talked about drugs, we talked about presidential candidates. Well, we didn't talk about the Democrats. Hillary a little bit, not too much. Is anybody here interested in politics? And running for office? You are? Just interested?
After the $200,000 comment?
That's countywide. I mean, you don't have to have that. You know, you know, and it's over a period of time. It's not all in like in 6 months, but it can get pretty pricey. You know, and, you know, I guess using the social internet, the social, you know, communication thing, that would kind of reduce the amount. But it's still, you're still going to spend money, huh? Any other questions?
No one has questions dealing with, I mean, he's an attorney. He was the prior district.
A district attorney, yeah.
If you have questions regarding any kind of arrest, any kind of
Death penalty?
thought you might have in your head, family member that's going through something right now, this would be the first time.
Just so you all know, I mean, a lot of times we see a lot of young kids that had a small amount of, for example, cocaine, and it's a state jail felony. A lot of people say, no, but I just had a little bit. But a little bit, you know the sweet and low packages? Okay, that's a gram. Even if you have less than a gram, it's still a state jail felony. And the reason I say felony is because that felony is what can get you into problems in terms of if you want to, you know, you need a license. If you're going to be a teacher, you have to be licensed by the Texas Education Agency. That's not going to happen. If you want to go into law enforcement, you need to be certified, peace officer certified. You have to go to the academy. That's not going to happen. If you want to be a nurse and you have that on there, that's not going to happen if you have that felony. So, and we see a lot of that, and we don't want to have people, you know, have those sort of problems.
If I'm correct, even for scholarships and financial aid, it asks you if you have any felonies.
You know, and do you have any felonies? And if you apply for any job, whatever, they're going to ask. Now that they're not only asking, do you have a prior felony conviction? Now they're asking, have you been arrested before? So if you've been arrested and the case got dismissed, or, you know, you paid a fine, you still have to explain what happened with that arrest. And sometimes, you know, if you have two people applying for a job and one doesn't have any prior arrest and one does, the one that doesn't have it is the one who's going to get the job. So they need to go to their next class? Yeah. All right.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you. So.